welcome to the Piper podcast, How I Grew My Brand, where we talk to successful founders about how they started their businesses and how they're building them into brand legends. I'm Mary Nightingale, and with me today is Freddy Ward, co-founder of Wild, the natural deodorant and body care brand on a mission to make the bathroom a more sustainable and stylish place. Hello, Freddy. Welcome.
Hi there.
So tell me about Wild then. What's the proposition?
Yeah, so we created Wild back in 2019. Quite a simple mission, two main themes really. One, loads of plastic in the bathroom. We wanted to try and push forward the different materials, find more sustainable materials to encase some of these bathroom products, and to help bring natural products to a more mainstream audience. And I think a couple of ways we wanted to do that, make it really convenient, highly effective and quite aspirational, a little bit sexy to entice customers in. And that's the kind of core tenets of Wild. And our main product to date has been this refillable deodorant. So you get an aluminium case, which is designed to last, a long time. And then you get these biodegradable bamboo pulp refills, which are designed to last not a very long time and be really easy to dispose of, recyclable, compostable. And you can just throw them away once you're kind of done.
And the name Wild, where does that come from?
So, I think for us, we wanted something that encapsulated the natural aspect of the brand, but also a little bit of fun, a bit of mischievousness, a little bit of unpredictability. And I think Wild really gives us a really very nice direction of the brand. Everything comes from the word, and that's been a lot of fun. There's a WhatsApp group. I think there's about 500 brand names back and forth, and a lot of not very nice feedback from each founder. And then suddenly Wild comes up, and we realised that's a good start, and very lucky to be able to get the trademark, etc., to launch with that name.
So you and your co-founder, Charlie, and you were bandying around. What were the other names that were rejected? Can you even remember?
I think it's sort of elm and oak, and we're sort of thinking woody and I think we said elm sounded a little bit like a car freshener. So there's all sorts of different names and ideas, but, Wild really stood out, and then we just kind of ran with it.
And how did the idea originally come about?
Prior to Wild, I'd been at a company called HelloFresh. So I've been in the food world for 6 years. And, in my time there, a couple of trends that became very prevalent. So one is this consciousness of packaging and plastic. I think in my first 3-4 years, no one ever mentioned the packaging. It wasn't just, people didn't think about it. And then by the time I left, it was the second biggest reason why customers were leaving recipe boxes, was because of the packaging. And you could just see, ever since Blue Planet and David Attenborough, this massive change in society to realising that we needed to evolve in the way we package and think about kind of products. So that was kind of one trend. And then the second trend is, people really thinking a bit more about what they're putting in their bodies, where those ingredients come from, what are those ingredients. And for me, it made a lot of sense that was going to translate into what they're putting on their bodies as well as in their bodies.
Okay, we'll talk more about the product later. Do you think you're always destined to be an entrepreneur?
I don't. I probably wasn't selling eggs at school or, like a lot of entrepreneurs or a real kind of hustler. I think it became, clearer once I left university. I think the reason I became an entrepreneur was primarily because I wasn't quite clever enough to get into all the grad schemes. So to say it was very intentional was not the case. And then once I'd seen what working in a fast growth company and the excitement and the learning curve and the opportunities and challenges at HelloFresh, which was just an amazing experience. Once you go through something like that, you want to do it yourself and you want to have a go and see what you can do. So I think entrepreneurialism probably for me came later in life rather than being something that was inherently built as a kind of young hustler.
You joined HelloFresh as an intern, didn't you?
Yeah, so I think there was 6 people in the time in the London office. And I always say the great thing about startups hiring is they don't have any money to advertise those jobs. So if you're lucky enough to find it, you're probably one of 3 or 4 people who've applied. And for me, I think 2 of those 3 people dropped out of the process. And they really needed someone to run an event, I think, the following weekend. So they were very keen to. So it was, I think I sat on a cardboard box in my interview. I was in a suit. Everyone else was sort of in t-shirts and shorts, so quite out of place. But yeah, that's where it all kind of started, and never looked back really.
And HelloFresh, for anyone who doesn't know about HelloFresh, it was very much, embryonic, wasn't it, in this country?
So even, I think when I joined, it was probably doing less than £1 million of revenue globally.
And we're talking what year at this point?
So that is 2012.
Okay.
And for context, I think last year they did $6 billion in revenue.
And 6 years later, you were marketing director?
Yeah, so I ended up running a team of 20 plus people. I think marketing budget of about 25 million in my last year, and the business went through an IPO, which was really exciting. So kind of saw all the different phases, and then I left, and the business got 5 times bigger in the UK. So I don't know whether that is a coincidence. I'd like to say COVID played some part. It wasn't all the fact that I wasn't a very good marketing director, but learned a huge amount from that, and still look back of that incredibly fondly, and has been a big part of why I've been able to create Wild.
What do you think your main learnings were from that that journey with HelloFresh? Because you really did ride it, didn't you?
Yeah, it's a lot of it is about tenacity. It's about being entrepreneurial, responding to what is thrown at you, but always realizing that everything can be better. And sometimes when it's really tough, you can't see a way out, or you can't see how it's possible. But then somehow the next quarter or the next year, you're back to growing again, and you've unlocked it. And that hard work, that focus, it does pay off. And you've just got to keep at it, keep thinking innovatively of how you unlock that phase of growth, and that a lot of that has to come from what your customers want and how you deliver that better for them.
So it was interesting, it was exciting, you learnt a lot, but you did decide then you wanted to go it alone. Do you think you are a risk taker by nature?
I think it was a risk to go out by yourself, and something I thought through a bit at the time, but it just felt like the perfect opportunity. I was lucky enough to make a little bit of money in the IPO, so that de-risked things a little bit for me. And I thought, if not now, then when? So I think I was definitely in a nice position where I could afford to take that risk. And I wanted to see, if I could apply what I've learned. And really inspired, actually, I vividly remember, halfway through my time at HelloFresh, I read this article of the Innocent alumni. It was an article about 10 or 15 people who'd worked at Innocent, and they'd gone on to create these fantastic businesses and sort of built the ecosystem. And I thought maybe one day HelloFresh will be like that. That will be seen as a feeder to the ecosystem. And I think you realise that a lot of successful startups are founded by people who have gone on the journey before in an amazing culture and category, and they've learned some really great lessons that they're then able to take and execute in a different category. You
kind of spread the love in a way, and the knowledge. Now, I talk to quite a lot of founders, as you know, and they often tell me they've always had a passion for their product. They love whatever it is: travel, food, entertainment. The passion for deodorant, I'm struggling with it.
I'm not going to sit here and be like I am truly every day wake up and I'm passionate about deodorant. But I do know, having not known very much, I do know a lot about deodorant now. But look, I love business, I love solving problems, and I love bringing people behind a vision. And I think what's most exciting for our product is the packaging innovation side and pushing the boundaries. Our job is to take technology and ideas that are available in the market but are not yet tested or not yet proven to either work properly or be ready for consumers or cost too much. And we want to accelerate bringing those to market, proving that they're viable, and then kind of building wide adoption. And I think one of the great moments so far for me at Wild happened a couple of weeks ago when my supplier called up and he said, look, I've just been approached by a large strategic, and they want to use your packaging, the packaging we've sort of designed together. And I said, that is really where you start to make the impact, because you're showing to the larger guys that this can be, people do want these products, they do want the change, and Wild in and of itself, how much change can we make? I don't know, but if we can show and highlight to the larger companies that these can become more mainstream, then that starts to be quite cool in terms of the impact you can make and where we progress from being a single-use plastic bathroom society to using more sustainable materials.
You know that Piper's all about building brand legends, and one of the tenets of that is that brands stay resolutely true to their purpose. And I guess this is what you're talking about here, isn't it? Define for us Wild's purpose.
So I think for us, it's about bringing natural products, and it's removing that single-use plastic and making that as convenient and as accessible as possible to as wide a group of people. And I think for, the naturals market, very well catered for market, sustainability as well, but it has always been targeted at a very small niche. And society has changed. There's way more people who are now interested or kind of aware of wanting to be more sustainable, wanting to use more natural products, but they don't feel any affinity or any warmth to those brands with brown paper packaging, or where you have to do all these weird routines to kind of put it on. And we see our role to just bring a bit of fun to the category, to bring a bit of, aspiration, to start to open up to that wider group of customers this product concept and range. And, we try and have a lot of fun while we do that.
Mm-hmm. Piper's principle of 7-17-70, I'm sure you're aware of it. It's the idea that there are certain points in a business's growth that there needs to be a step change. They need to there's an inflection point of some sort. Where are you on that 7-17-70 journey? And I'm talking about, sales figures or number of sites or employees.
We're coming close to the final stage of that. So we're coming close to the 70.
70 in terms of?
Revenue, yeah.
Okay, so 70 million.
Yeah.
And did you register those inflection points along the way? Do they make sense to you?
I definitely think in terms of team size, you're probably 10 to 15 people at 7. You're about 30 people at 17, and you're about 70 or 80 people at 70. That there's very different skills as a CEO, and there's very different company cultures. And I really noticed that. And I think one of the best things I have been able to take is at HelloFresh, I've seen what happens. So I know what's coming. I know that employees are going to get less happy as you get bigger because there's more of them, and they all want progression and they all want clarity, and not all of them are as aligned as that first 10. And I love that first stage, that 10 people in an office just coming in. They're all every day just giving their all, and it's you against the world. And there's this wonderful thing where everyone at 0 to 7, everyone wants you to be successful. They're like, it's a startup, great, a little bit patronizing. They're like, deodorant, great idea, I'm sure it's going to work, but no one believes it will. But you're sort of totally under the radar, and that's great. That's a great fun stage. And then the 70 million stage, which we're kind of approaching, it's sort of strange. Sort of people start quite taking a little bit of pleasure when you slip up. They're kind of looking to put
You're talking about competitors here.
Competitors and, just peers and things. It's sort of a little bit, it's a slightly strange British thing where, you can be successful, but they don't want you to be too successful. And then, as a founder, there's just a lot more responsibility on your shoulders. You're looking after 80 people. You've often got to make difficult decisions, and they're big decisions at this stage. Again, 0 to 7. You can change a decision one day and change it the next, and no one even notices you made it. But, one of the things we're bad at as founders, Charlie and I are very impulsive. We're very entrepreneurial. We'll try something, and then we'll try something new, and we'll just keep going. But that doesn't scale, and that doesn't work when you're a bigger team of 80 people like we are now, and you have to be a lot more purposeful, methodical, and you have to try and become a little bit corporate. But the challenge is, how do you still retain that entrepreneurial spirit and still be able to move fast and take risks? And that's a really big challenge for us.
You've talked a little bit about how you recognise those inflection points, but were there points along that journey where you felt, in a sense, you might be out of step? You had to play catch up in terms of skills or hires or that kind of thing.
So I think 17 is a big moment where you need to professionalise your systems and put in the right accounting software, the right ERP software, and also at that point we were just moving into multi-territory warehousing, and the business just becomes a lot more complicated. Up to 17, you're probably running everything on Excel spreadsheets, and suddenly you're having to drain a lot of the team's time, like huge amounts of time and resource in an area where you don't see any value. And that's incredibly frustrating as a founder, because you're like, they're working on this stupid project that's not going to help anything really. But if we don't do it, we don't have the right systems and the right processes in place to scale. I think we should have asked for more help. We thought we can try to figure it out by ourselves, and putting those systems and processes were a lot more complicated and caused us a lot of pain. Our first Black Friday of our new software system, the system just broke, just couldn't take the orders, and the team were having to work all-nighters uploading orders manually just to keep people packing. And you burn out your team, you lose credibility in the business, your investors are not very happy, your 3PLs are not very happy. So I think probably getting a bit ahead of that game and realising how complex those projects are, and bringing the right experience, whether that's consultants or freelance or in the team, to help deliver that, really, really important. And then I think looking to where we are at the moment, the brand, who we are, what we stand for, our principles, our customers, that all comes quite natural in a team of up to 40, 50 people. But I think at our stage, it has to be codified, and everyone has to be really clear on that. And we have to really communicate that. And we haven't done a particularly good job yet of how we codify and educate the whole team on who our brand is, what we stand for, and how they uphold our principles, both internally and externally.
What about in terms of the team? What were your most critical hires, do you think, particularly early on?
So I think 8 out of our first 10 hires are still with the company 4 years on, and they have been totally critical to our success. We have an ops director, finance director, and a growth director. All 3 of them were in our first 10 hires. They all started, I think, maybe as managers, and have kind of scaled up into those positions. And again, a lot of my learnings from HelloFresh was, if you're smart and you're hungry and you want to grow and learn, you can go on to run those teams, and you should be given the opportunity. And that has created fantastic stability, fantastic continuity, and a really deep-seated trust between those people. I think all 3 of them will go on to be C-level, hopefully that's at Wild, but if not at Wild, into other organisations, and they're certainly capable of operating at that level. I said to someone last week who was coming from another startup, I said, look, the startup you've been at behaves a bit like Manchester City. They go and they're like buying all these big name people in the startup world, and you're paying big 6-figure salaries, and there's so many layers and structures. And I see Wild more as like a Brentford. It's about finding talent that other people can't see, or finding individuals that don't quite fit where they are, but how to get the best from them, and building that in a kind of scrappy, kind of more methodical way. And at the right time, you might bring in a seasoned head, but even they, should ideally be good value for money, and that they still feel the energy and the passion to come and work in a company that you're trying to create.
Mm. Has your leadership style had to change over the journey, do you think?
I wear my heart on my sleeve. I try and communicate a lot. I like communicating. I like talking to the team. I like being open. So I think in general, it hasn't changed a huge amount, but it has to become more purposeful, more thoughtful. Again, when you're 10, 20 people, we're training them up on what all the metrics mean, all the numbers, and everyone is very cross-functional, cross-departmental, and their roles are very broad, so they all kind of understand the context of the business. And so you can share quite a lot with that team, and you expect them to know a lot. When there's 80 people and you've got people in customer service, people in influencer marketing, people in operations, that's a really big audience. And the level of detail and the level that they're willing to pay attention to or that they care about is very, very different to that kind of early stages. So I think it's just really understanding that audience and then what the right audiences are for what sets of information and how granular and how much they need to know, but really still trying to instill a sense of financial literacy, that people understand what a P&L is, what revenue is and what profit is and why that's important, and really understanding why we exist and what our mission is and who our customer is and how we serve them better.
You're listening to the Piper Podcast, How I Grew My Brand. With me today, Freddy Ward, co-founder of Wild. Piper talk about the idea of what makes a particular brand better and different to its competitors. And you have already acknowledged that there is quite a lot of product out there in this particular space. But what makes Wild better or different?
A lot of people would say Wild is about sustainability and natural products, but the number one reason people buy Wild products is fragrance. So they are looking for, more interesting, more diverse range of fragrances. I think when you go into a supermarket, you probably get 4 or 5 fragrances that, generally every brand has an adaptation of that. But it has to be a very focused assortment with not much change, just the way retail works. And what direct-to-consumer deodorant has allowed us to do is create way more fragrances and to really have a lot of fun with those fragrances and to let people kind of explore what they like and what they don't like and try different things. So fragrance is a misunderstood but a really, really big category driver. And then a natural deodorant that works, it's really challenging. Naturals have their limitations and very difficult to get them to work for everyone. But the technology has come on a long, long way. And one of our big strengths now as a brand is we have over 1 million people on our database. We're able to very clearly test different variations of our product. And we've got 3 tests running in the next couple of months with 3 different deodorants we've been working on for 6 months. So that kind of R&D is relentless. And our D2C data side allows us to be way more data-driven than even the large conglomerates can be in refining and adapting and continuing to evolve the natural products and getting them as efficacious and as nice to use as possible.
You acknowledge, don't you, that your first deodorant, which was, 2019?
Was a disaster, absolute disaster, yeah. None of my family buy Wild now because they're so scarred by the first iteration. I went home the other day and I think my dad still got 3 in his bathroom that he's never touched. So, yeah, I was naive and arrogant. I thought, how hard can it be? It's a deodorant. I'll just call these people up and we'll make some and it'll be great. And, that turned out not to be the case. So
what is wrong with a traditional deodorant?
We don't like to say anything is wrong.
What do you seek to improve on a traditional deodorant?
So basically, most normal antiperspirants use something called aluminium salts. And what those do is they just block your pores. So it's actually an antiperspirant. It's not a deodorant. What a natural deodorant does is it doesn't block your pores. It still allows your pores to sweat, but it counterbalances that sweat with fragrance and then primarily baking soda as the ingredient to stop that sweat from kind of smelling. And it's just, the ingredients are very simple: shea butter, baking soda, coconut oil, all things that you'll be familiar with. And it's trying to do as little as possible, but still do the job. Is essentially we see the role of Wild as a product.
And when you first started out, you were mixing this stuff in your kitchen, were you? Or talk to me about the very beginning of producing product.
I never tried to make it myself in the kitchen. We worked with lots of different manufacturers and people to begin with and realised that, there wasn't much specialism in Europe. Not many people were making these products. So we actually spent quite a lot of time in the US where it's much more established. There are many more players really understanding the way they think about it, trying a lot of those products and then working with our partners to get the technology and the expertise that we needed to start creating it here. There were a lot of challenges. So the first product was just in plastic. That was kind of fine. It was just badly thought through and not enough testing and just probably too extreme version of get something to market.
And this is 2019?
2019, yeah.
Okay.
And then in 2020, we closed that down. We raised some seed funding and then spent a lot of time working and adapting this formula, which we were pretty happy with, but we were running things tight with the packaging. First production run comes and it was a total disaster.
Define disaster. What do you mean?
We made 0 successful deodorants. It was very expensive. The deodorants had holes in them. The product was leaked through the bamboo pulp. And I was just sitting there basically in tears, just watching as deodorant after deodorant came off the line, and I was like, we're never going to get this. We're just never going to get this to work. So we went back to the lab. We tested all these different temperatures, different oils, what temperature you fill it at, what temperature you cool it at, how you finish it off at the end of the line. And bit by bit, step by step, we got it to a place where, the first was just about good enough to go, although we had a real problem where they were like sticking like concrete to the to the side of the refill. So those first customers really had to push very, very hard to get them out. And then, just over time, we've just become very aligned with test, iterate, learn.
And what kind of production run do you have now?
In a good month, we're doing over 1 million deodorants, which is quite a lot of deodorant.
And how many different fragrances?
I think there's about 20 different fragrances at any one time at the moment, yeah.
Most popular?
We have our kind of classics, which are sort of fresh cotton and sea salt, ocean mist, cherry blossom, coconut and vanilla. They tend to appeal to kind of a broad demographic. But we've done some pretty crazy ones as limited edition scents. We've done a lemon meringue scent, which I didn't think anyone would want to smell like. I don't think anyone thought they wanted to smell like it, but lots of people bought it. So we did a toffee apple one.
I'm not tempted by the toffee apple.
No, I wouldn't recommend it, to be honest. But each to their own. I think our most disastrous one, we did a chocolate one, and that was too far. People were like, no, actually, I don't want to smell like chocolate. But we're looking to try and push those boundaries, to try and tap into people's emotions. And it's really funny what people look for and what gets people excited. And fragrance innovation is something we spend a huge amount of time and have a lot of fun with, and I think our customers enjoy that as well.
You're D2C, aren't you? You started out as that, but you're also now in retailers, and you've got a special deal with Tesco where you're doing hair care product for them, but only doing hair care product with Tesco and not on your website. So talk to me about how you're selling your product, how you're distributing it.
So I think from day one, I wanted to be in a business that could be omni-channel, having seen some of the challenges of being a pure play, direct-to-consumer business at HelloFresh. So I really felt the future was going to be in how you mix both on and offline, rather than trying to pure play in either. And I also never bought into the idea that enough people would want to buy their deodorant from one company, their toothbrush from another. Your top customers will, your most loyal 20%, they will come to you and they will subscribe, and they are just the most wonderful people, and we love them a huge amount. Of the other 80%, probably 30% never want to use your brand, doesn't work for them, or it's not quite right. But there's a sort of 50% where they like your brand, they like your products, they just don't care enough to come to your website and order it or to have to faff with a subscription. But if it's there as part of their weekly, monthly shop, and they're in Tesco's and they're in Sainsbury's, and they're like, oh, wild, yeah, I haven't refilled that for a while, just kind of pick it up. So that was really a foundational belief. And 90% of deodorants, even more than 90%, are still sold through supermarkets and Boots, basically. So it was always part of our plan to sell there. First year with just D2C, stayed focused, really learned a lot, and were able to iterate the product and make a lot of mistakes without the pressures of going into retail. And then managed to join the Sainsbury's Future Brand Programme, which is a wonderful programme that they're very sadly closing down, where they support young brands. They give them marketing and space and dedicated teams. And that was really the starting point for Wild. And we said, okay, let's give it a go. A lot of people said this will not work in retail. It's too expensive. You're charging £13 for a starter pack. The most expensive deodorant is £3 in Tesco's. It's not going to work. I said, okay, well, we'll learn pretty quickly. And it turned out to be exactly the opposite, where we were able to bring in a really different type of shopper to the category, and we were tripling their basket size in the deodorant aisle. And so it's become a really lovely story to go and tell the retailers of, look, this is totally incremental. It's a new customer, the sort of customers you want to bring in your shop, and they have a reason to come back because it's a refill. Maybe they can only get that specific refill in this shop, so they're going to come back and build retention and longevity as well. And that's been a really core part of our success. And then, more recently, the Tesco team, have been phenomenally supportive and really, buy into the future of the personal care category being particularly in naturals and in refillables. And so they came to us and said, look, we want to do more. What can you do? And rightly or wrongly, this was probably about 6 months ago, we said, look, Tesco, it's very rare that you get Tesco coming for you, asking you for more products.
Nice feeling.
Yes, it's a nice feeling. And you think, look, this is our big opportunity and we've got to just go for it. So we already had body wash, which we're just launching. Ideally we would have had a bit more time to refine and develop the proposition, but we thought, okay, let's do that. And they said, we want hair care as well. So we thought, okay, let's give it a go. And I think the caveat was, look, we're going to need to learn together here. We're pushing really hard to bring this to you, but it may not work to begin with, and there needs to be a process of iteration and improvement. And that's kind of where we've got to. So we've launched in 700 Tesco's. We've got all these products. We're learning a huge amount. There's a lot we need to improve, but I think we're really excited about what the future looks like and the potential beyond deodorant. And foundationally, if Wild wants to achieve its goals, it has to be more than a deodorant brand. So we have to be able to prove that we can move into multi-category.
I mean, joining up with Tesco and providing product for them is fantastic, of course, but it in some way must have changed fundamentally the way you operate, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is fantastic. But I say to the team, pipe fill is pure vanity. It's a great feeling, that cash injection, record months, and you're in Tesco's and you're sending pictures to your mum, and and the team get really excited about it. But one of my difficult jobs is saying, actually, although ostensibly this is good and great, it just means nothing unless you establish yourself and you build a product that can grow over time, and you can, and so what I'm really trying to focus on in the team is what I want to celebrate is that we made more sales this week than we did last week. And that can be one more sale, it can be two more sales, but it's 0.1 or 0.5% better. And that day-to-day grind of building and establishing a product is far, far more important than a big ego boost for this huge pipe fill, big, invoices. Ultimately, in the long term, that means nothing unless you can establish yourselves. And I think that's where focus and prioritization and taking the risks at the right time, because these retailers, yes, they want to work with you, but they also have to make money, and they're in a ferociously competitive market, and their shelf space it's about having the products that are going to drive the most money or the most incrementality to deliver what they need to deliver. And that's where we need to align, and that's where we need to be focused. So I think it's been great. Put a huge amount of pressure on the team to just get it out there and deliver it in a short period of time. But I my message to the team last week is the hard work starts now, and we have to build from here. And we're going to have to be at the top of our game to move into these new categories and prove we have a right to play here.
And don't get too comfortable.
Never get too comfortable. And I think again, there's this aura. And when we were smaller, I always looked up to brands and you think, oh, they're so successful, and everything must go right. And behind the scenes, it's total chaos. There's things going wrong every day. The team are at the wit's end. There's a huge amount of pressure and responsibility, but that's part of why you do it. That's when you learn most about your team and your people, and it's my job to try and keep everyone focused and stick to the plan.
Keep your feet on the ground.
Yeah, definitely keep your feet on the ground. I think one of the great things about starting a business in the COVID generation is I saw so many of my peers, raise incredible amounts of money at huge valuations. And I was like, wow, these guys are amazing. And, it's been quite a come back down to earth for all consumer brands. And I think it makes you realise that when things are really good and everyone thinks it's amazing, that's the time to keep yourself in check and realise things can change very, very quickly in this game. And likewise, when everyone's saying consumer is doomed and we're in a big recession, and it's never as bad as it's never as good as people say, but it's also never as bad as people make it out. And it's trying to stay balanced and keep the team balanced through those different waves.
I mean, we haven't talked about COVID yet, but your launch time and the period where you perfected your product and so on, and then COVID hit.
Yes, I think from a direct-to-consumer perspective, relaunching the business in April 2020 was probably the biggest stroke of luck we could have got. The world went into lockdown pretty much that week. Everyone came online, and we had people who were bored at home, who were also probably a little bit more willing to experiment with which deodorant they're using because they weren't going into the office. And they were looking for things that were new and exciting and to keep them busy and occupied. And so what's really important for us is the product was very bespokely tooled. That is very expensive, and the unit economics make no sense at subscale. So those first few months, you're basically losing money on everything you sell. And the great thing was COVID allowed us to accelerate through that really quickly, and for our manufacturers to take us a lot more seriously than they initially did, and for the unit economics to start to work. And I think if we hadn't had COVID, getting out of that horrible cycle of being low margin and no one respecting you, and it could have been a lot harder. So I think a lot of luck for us with the timing that we launched and the opportunity we were given. And I only wish we'd just spent more and been more aggressive, but you always learn from these things in hindsight.
But also the world was so weird then, wasn't it? And none of us quite knew what was going to transpire. So it must have been very challenging to actually get the product. And I was reading one of the articles about you. You ran out of baking soda at one point.
Yeah, I just remember approaching all these people on LinkedIn saying, do you have any baking soda? And I remember the COO of Lush replied and said, yeah, we've got the grade you need, and can we help you out? And I think it's testament to the community. And also I say to the team, when you're really backed to the wall and you have to find something to make something happen, that's when you realise how much you can do when you really have to, and how you utilise have shameless in who you approach and what you ask for, and those lessons you learn in the early days, those are now ingrained. So we sold out of a product last week, and the team said to me, it's going to take 3 months to get this back in stock. And I just looked at our ops director, and she just knew that 3 months was not going to fly. And we know that when we really need to push the supply chain, we can make stuff happen. And I think it's going to be back in 2 weeks now, that product, because the team just changed the mentality of that's not possible. We can't wait 2 months. We've got to make it happen, and just push every contact, every supplier, every part of the supply chain to get it together and make it happen. Do you
do your R&D and stuff? Does that all happen in-house, or do you outsource quite a lot of your stuff? We
outsource our tech. Again, we didn't want to be a tech agency. We want to set ourselves up for marketing and growth. That's kind of where we want to over-index. That's where our strength and knowledge happens. So we really invest heavily into those teams, and then try and stay lean elsewhere. But product, we have a special formulator now who's just working on all formulations every day. We have a packaging specialist. We have a sustainability specialist. So quite a big part of the team. And, we still believe long-term, if your product's not great, then you can market the shit out of it, but it's not going to do anything. So you've got to have the foundational product needs to be really good and always being improved. And then marketing, you then can unleash the marketing weapon to really go and grow and scale the business.
Mm. Can we talk about funding? How has the funding worked right from the start? You talked about having got a little bit of money out of HelloFresh, which gave you some independence. But how did you actually get started?
Yeah, so I put some money in to begin with to get that kind of proof of concept off the ground and to prove that there was a business model here. We then raised $500,000 in seed funding just from angel investors. Again, we were rejected by all seed funds. So I think for any entrepreneurs who are in that raising journey or at that early stage, that happens. It took us 6 months longer than we thought. Again, we had to use all our resourcefulness, all of our contacts and networks and...
Family and friends?
No, not really family and friends. It was just for us. We just didn't want to lose our family and friends lots of money. And, we got a whole load of people who are in the consumer world, some people from HelloFresh, etc. So, yeah, mainly professional network.
Do you foresee a time when you will exit, sell the baby?
We're a venture-backed business, so there has to be an exit at some point. I think we've still got a lot to achieve and to deliver. We're certainly not looking to exit in the kind of near term, but at some point we will look for a next round of funding, whether that's from private equity, maybe like a Piper, if we would be so lucky, or a larger strategic. All of that would be on the table. But I think the key is, don't get too far ahead of yourself. Kind of have a really clear plan and keep delivering to that plan. And then I think when the time comes, it will feel quite a natural timing. But that timing is not yet.
You're not looking forward to Lamborghinis or?
I'm not ready to buy the yacht just yet, but I'm sure we can think about that once we sold a few more deodorants.
What about the next step then, in terms of taking the brand international, for example?
I think for us, the three levers of growth are omni-channel, international, and multi-product. I think what we did really, really well in our first few years is we just did one product. We really focused on that, and we tried to get really good at that. And we did it in a couple of different countries. I remember talking to our investors, Jan, they said, this can't just be a deodorant brand. It's never going to be big enough. You've got to go into lots of products straight away. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And ignoring that advice was really, really important. And we said, well, we disagree. We're going to stick and focus. And once you're growing, you realise that there's so much opportunity in just getting that one product right.
What gave you that confidence to believe that you were right when everyone was telling you otherwise?
I had a really clear view that simplicity and being good at one thing was how I wanted to build a business, and trying to do lots of things at once probably means you do an average job at all of them. And even adding more products, you realise the complexity and the challenges and the scope. So I think it's like a little bit of experience, a little bit of knowledge of what's worked in other companies, and a little bit of my, how I see the world. It's about trying to do, again, probably not smart enough or, good enough operators to do loads of things at once, and kind of realising that, and just being good at one thing has been a big part of why Wild has been able to grow quickly.
Mm. But you will expand your product
We are expanding.
range?
Yeah, we are expanding internationally, our product range, and into multi-channels. And that's the future. We want to be hundreds of millions in revenue and, making a genuine impact in the bathroom. We need to be many times bigger than we are today. And that consists with still the bedrock of continuing to make our deodorant better in every element: sustainability, efficacy, fragrance, really continuing to have the right to win. We have some great competitors who, are doing a good job, and they're pushing us hard. And again, from the recipe box market, if you let your foot off the gas or you become complacent, they're just going to take your market share. And that can happen very, very quickly. So we've got to stay on the top of the game in the core market with the core product. And always it's the UK that seems to be the most competitive. I think there are many better markets to launch and have less competition. I believe this business will be really global, but with for now, a centralised team all based out of London and kind of operating remotely.
Do you all operate? Is there a central office where you all meet up?
Yeah. And everyone's in 3 days a week.
Okay. And you have teams who are not in the office ever? Or?
No, everyone is in the office.
And that's a priority for you, is it?
The team would never let me, but I would get them in 5 days a week if I could. I think startups' jobs are to be contrarian and to go against the flow. And when I started out, corporates were all 5 days a week. So what you wanted to offer was, more flexibility so you could bring people. I can see it going the other way, where startups start to say, actually, we're going to offer 5 days a week to come and work and be part of something and feel part of something and get that excitement. And that's different to the corporate, where you don't know who your boss is, you don't make any friends. And so, but, I've got young children, and it's a slightly different stage, and the team certainly don't feel the same positivity about 5 days a week. So we mandate 3 days, and every day in the office, for me, I have a lot more fun. I get a lot more from it. And I really believe it's integral in a high growth business to do it. And, we probably pay less. We probably have less structured L&D. So why are you joining a company like Wild? Yes, it's the mission, but it's also the friends, the companionship, and feeling like you're part of something exciting. And I think that's really, really hard to do if you're all remote.
Mm. I want to talk to you about your customers and your brand identity. What's your tone of voice? How do you communicate with your customers? Who are they?
Our customers are not us as founders. Our customers tend to be women, 30 to 45, often with young children. I think our wives are very much in the sweet spot, so they have a lot of input on testing products and giving us, certainly in the early days, feedback on the brand and how we do it. And I think the good thing about not being the customer, again, what I see quite often in startups is when you are the customer, you think you know your customer because you feel like they are you. So it's as long if you make that decision, that's what your customers want. Whereas for us, we never have any preconceptions about our customer. We really talk to them. We use data, quantitative, qualitative, and really try and build the product and the brand around what they want. And our role with tone of voice and the way the brand comes is just have some fun. Don't be too serious. It's not, we're saving the world, global warming, plastic. It's more lighthearted, more fun, wild, nature, and just trying to be a bit expressive and appeal to a broader audience than perhaps, as I said, these sustainability focused brands have done in the past. And wild in itself, for me, has a sense of freedom, and that freedom is what we try and give to the creative team. So express, have some freedom, play around, get things wrong. That's totally okay. But my biggest fear is that people find wild boring, and our job is to entertain, to be there in people's feeds, to inspire them to choose your brand. I always say, look, the deodorant might not work for people. They might have challenges with their product, but I want them to try and leave feeling like they liked the brand. They had a nice experience, because who knows, they might want to buy the body wash in the future, or they might want to buy the lip balm or whatever. And kind of reminding the team of that regularly is a really important part of what we do.
Is there a tribe? Is there a community? Do they have a name? What other wild things, your people?
No, we don't have a name. It's just called the Wild VIP group, which is probably a bit boring.
And how do you communicate with them?
So there's this big Facebook group, which I think is pretty commonplace for brands now. But back to your earlier point, people really that passionate about deodorant? Do they really care? They really do. It's amazing. And a lot of them have been part of this brand journey. Someone posted yesterday saying, "Happy birthday for your 4 years. Here's a picture of the product I bought 4 years ago." And it was a really nice comment. And you think, wow, that's really heartwarming and lovely, and kind of what it's all about. And, ultimately you're there to service your customers. And I really believe in transparency. So whether that's the team in terms of numbers and how the business is doing, whether it's going well or not going well, with our customers, I think try and be as transparent, as open as possible. And I think a lot of the time you're building goodwill for the inevitable times where you slip up or you mess up and you let your customers down. And as long as you've built that bank up of goodwill over time, they'll forgive you and they'll still be loyal to you moving forward. But I think that's the real test when things go wrong. Are your customers standing by you? Are they sticking up for you? Do they believe that you're authentic to what you've been saying? And that's what we work towards.
When you say things go wrong, I mean, what sort of things? What's the worst thing that's gone wrong, apart from launching chocolate deodorant, which I think we can all agree was a terrible error?
Chocolate deodorant was a bad idea. You live by the sword, you die by the sword in digital. So we use a lot of influencers, we use a lot of digital marketing. That can be great for building a brand, but it can also kill a brand overnight if you work with the wrong person or you align with the wrong things. And I think as a brand, that's really hard to tread the right line and not to offend people. And communication, what's the right level of emailing people and messaging people? Every time you send an email, it drives revenue. So you want to send more emails, but there is a moment when that's too much. We sent out a Mother's Day email a couple of weeks ago, and we hadn't sort of asked if people wanted to opt out, which I think has become common practice thanks to Bloom & Wilder, Piper brand, and it was a big uproar on LinkedIn that we'd been so insensitive. Again, we try and reply and put our hands up and say, look, we didn't think about it. We're really sorry. We'll learn from this, and that's where the community, the brand, and what you've built in the past is super important when those issues come up, and that you're able to react in a way where you're open and honest, and you don't lose that trust.
It's a success, right? I know you're cautious, but this is a success now. Do you acknowledge that yet? And if you do, what do you put it down to?
No, you can't when you're building, you can't dwell too much on what has been. It's about where you're trying to go. And from my side, if you sit there and go, I'm a success, it's the day you stop working as hard, you stop caring as much, your team become arrogant. And there are lots of good things about Wild, lots of things we can be proud of, but we have much bigger ambitions than we are today, and we can be a lot better in every department, and certainly doesn't feel to me like a success. Every day we're going in and we're fighting hard, and there's lots to improve. So, I think there are moments when we reflect and enjoy that success, and we try and be purposeful about that. But then it's the next day you come in and you're back to working hard and making things happen. And as I said, look, things can change really, really, really quickly. HelloFresh, good example. They were valued at, I think, nearly 7-8 billion euros at the peak of COVID, and now valued at sub $1 billion. Most direct-to-consumer share prices are down 95% in the last 3 years. And that is incredibly tough. And it's a really great reminder that things can change very, very quickly. And also that the success can't just be tied to money and valuation. It needs to be also tied to staying true to your roots, your product, and building something. Success for me is building a business that can sustain growth for decades, not years. And I think it is increasingly easy to build a brand that hits the zeitgeist and grows really quickly and is part of the culture and excitement, but it is so easy for those brands to very quickly disappear. What I see as successful is, are we building the stable foundations for this to be an enduring brand for many, many years to come, not just something that was kind of off the moment? And I think that in itself, for me, is not what a successful brand looks like. It's like, in 10 years' time, what has Wild gone on to achieve, and how did we build the right foundations and the right culture and the right strategy to deliver that?
Do you worry about it? Do you sleep at night? I know you've got small children, so the answer is you probably don't sleep at night. But does stress about Wild keep you awake at night?
Yeah. It's hard not to take it personally when things go wrong. The bigger it gets, the more you feel the pressure, and you're increasingly outside of your comfort zone of what you know and what you're good at. So I do worry. It's my job to worry about everything, but I also enjoy it. I love it. I signed up to do it. If it all fails tomorrow, it's been worth it. I've learned a huge amount. I've loved every minute. I have a great team who I learn from and inspire me. I love working with my co-founder. It's harmonious and fun, and he's very supportive. And so in general, there is worry, but it's not crippling, and it's all definitely worth it.
What advice would you give to other founders or would-be founders who might be listening?
I think it's important to acknowledge I've had a lot of privilege in my life, so it's often easier for me than for other people to take the risks and to start a company, and so just want to acknowledge that. But for everyone, a lot of it just comes into believing that you can do something and realising where you're good at and where you over-index versus other people, and tailoring your business to suit those areas that you're really strong in. And then the big thing for us has been just keep it simple. I see too many brands overcomplicating too quickly. You can grow with one channel and one product to that first 7 million with a team of 5 to 10 people. You don't need loads of people. You don't need loads of money. You can do a huge amount yourself when you have to, and when you have to be really resourceful. And a lot of the best businesses I know that I really admire haven't raised huge amounts of capital. They've learned to be really efficient from the early stage. They've learned the disciplines, and they've had to really sweat the small stuff to get there. But yeah, I think keep it simple, have fun, and I couldn't have done it without a co-founder. Personally, I found a co-founder who we work well together. We share the highs and lows, and that's made it a lot more enjoyable. I think I would have really struggled if I'd done it by myself.
Freddy Ward, so nice to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.